Good morning, students. This is Dr. Sunita Yadav, and today I'll be discussing with you, or I'll be studying with you, a poem by an Indian poet, Toru. The name of the poem is The Lotus. Now, before we start the poem, I would like to tell you that your book of poetry, or Strings of Gold, it is divided in two sections. In the first section, we have poems by English writers, British writers. In the second section, we have poems by Indian writers. Poems are in English, but they are written by the Indian poets. So, the first poem prescribed for your syllabus is by Toru. She was from Bengal, and the details of what type of a poet she was and the details about the poet I'll be sharing with you through a PPT. Right now we will go straight to the poem and we'll study the poem word by word, line by line. Try to understand what Toru Dutt is trying to tell us through this miracle of a poem that she wrote. First, the poem is a sonnet. What is a sonnet? Sonnet is a small poem of 14 lines, and the 14 lines are divided in two ways. In some sonnets, these 14 lines are divided in 3 stanzas plus a rhyming couplet. That means 4 plus 4 plus 4 and 2 concluding lines. So there are 3 stanzas. In some sonnets, it is only 2 stanzas, one of 8 lines and the other of 6 lines. So 14 lines. So a sonnet is a small poem of 14 lines. The poem The Lotus by Toru Dutt is a sonnet in which there are 2 stanzas. The first stanza is of 8 lines and the second stanza is of 6 lines. Now, as you know, the name is the lotus, and lotus, as we all know, is a very important flower in Hindu culture, because you must have seen that in the temples there are the flower lotus is given so much of importance. So definitely there must be something appealing about the lotus, that Toru Dutt wrote a poem by the title The Lotus. So let us see what she has written. So I hope you have the poem in front of you so that we can study it word by word. The first line is, Love came to Flora asking for a flower that would of flowers be undisputed queen. This is one sentence. There are 2 lines but one sentence, and there are 2 people in these 2 lines. One is love and one is Flora. Love here means the god of love, or Cupid, C-U-P-I-D. Cupid is the god of love. And second name is Flora, F-L-O-R-A. Flora here means the queen of flowers, or the goddess of flowers, the goddess who controls the whole of flower kingdom. Now what happens? The king of love, or the god of love, let us take it as god and goddesses, not kings and queens. So the god of love goes to the goddess of flowers. And why does he go? He goes asking her for one flower which will be the best flower, the most beautiful flower, and it should be accepted as the most beautiful flower by the whole vegetation kingdom, or the whole of the flora. So once again we'll go back to those lines. Love, that is god of love, came to Flora. He goes to the goddess of flowers asking for a flower, and what quality should that flower have? That would be of flowers, be undisputed queen. Dispute means a quarrel, and undisputed is that there should be no quarrel about the supremacy of that flower, that everyone should agree that this flower is the most beautiful flower in the kingdom of flowers. Right? Now, the lily and the rose long had been rivals for that high honor. Then he tells us further, the poet Toru Dutt, she tells us that since very long time there has always been a quarrel for this power. What power? The power of being called the best. And who were the two people, who were the two flowers between which this quarrel was going on? The rose and the lily. Sometimes lily said, I am the best flower. Other time rose would say, I am the best flower. So for a very long time, a quarrel had been going on between these two flowers regarding the power of being the best, or the supremacy of the best. So the lily and the rose long had been rivals. Rivals are enemies. So there had been an enmity between them. For what? For that high honor. And what is the honor? The best of flowers. Bards of power. Bards are poets. Those poets who were always next to the king. Those poets who sat near the king, singing in praise of the king. So bards of power had sung their claims. The claim is the demand of these flowers. Sometimes rose demanded that I should be considered as the best flower. Sometimes lily demanded that I should be considered as the best flower. And from time to time, generation to generation, we have been having poets singing in praise of these flowers. Some poet would always put rose as the best. Some poets would put lily as the best. So poets had been composing poems in praise of these flowers, but there had never been a consensus. Consensus is when you come to an agreement. But it never happened that everyone agreed that either rose is the best flower or lily is the best flower. So the poet tells us, Toru tells us, that from long time there had always been this quarrel or dispute, and poems had been composed in praise of these flowers. Which flowers? The rose and the lily. And why were the poems were being composed? Because some poets showered honor on rose, some poets showed favor towards the lily. Now, what did they sing, these poets? Some said, the rose can never tower like the pale lily with her Juno mien. Now, here we have a reference to Greek mythology. Juno is the beautiful wife of the god Jupiter, and mien means the appearance. So some poets, and what are we calling poets here? Bards, B-A-R-D-S. So some poets sang in praise of lily, and they compared the beauty of lily to the beauty of Juno. Who is Juno? The wife of god Jupiter. So they said that rose can never compare to the beauty of lily, because lily is as beautiful as Juno. And mien means appearance. So lily in her beauty, in her pride, in her majesty, appeared as beautiful, as majestic, as royal as the lily, as Juno. So rose can never dream, can never think of gaining same majesty, stateliness, royalness as the lily. So this was the opinion of some poets about lily. Like the pale lily with her Juno mead, but is the lily lovelier? But some said no. Is lily more beautiful than Juno? So, thus between flower factions. Factions means groups. Now, so there is a division between flowers. Some are in favor of rose and some are in favor of lily. So we call them as factions. Factions are the disputant groups, the two groups. So there was a discussion between these groups of flowers. And where did this discussion take place? It took place in Psyche's bower. Strife is again a dispute. And now who is Psyche? Psyche is the goddess, and she is said to be the beloved of, she is said to have a liking for Cupid, the god of love. So in Psyche's bower is the shelter or the residence or the place where one resides. In Psyche's house, in Psyche's residence, in that bower, there was this dispute going on between the groups of flowers. Right? So because of this dispute, Love, God of love, wanted to find a solution to this dispute, that for once and all, let us have one common flower which will be considered as the best flower of the flower kingdom. So with this question, he goes to the goddess of flowers. And what does he say? He says, "Give me a flower delicious as the rose." Delicious here means as beautiful as the rose. So, what is the condition and what is the demand of the god of love? He asks Flora, the goddess of flowers, please give me a flower which is as beautiful, as attractive. And what word does Toru Dutt use here for rose? As delicious. Delicious here is for the beauty of rose. So give me a flower delicious as the rose and stately as the lily in her pride. But that flower should look as beautiful as the rose, but it should have some quality of the lily also. And what is the quality of the lily? The stateliness. Stateliness is the majesty. That is, she looks so royal. So the flower should have the look, the pride of lily, and it should be as beautiful as the rose. So now we know that these are the two qualities of the two flowers. Rose is beautiful, lily is royal. So love, God of love, wants a flower which has both the qualities, the quality of rose and the quality of a lily. So I'll read the lines again. God of love asking the goddess Flora, and what does he say? Give me a flower delicious as the rose and stately as the lily in her pride. But of what color? So qualities he has demanded, but then the question is color. So he says, what color? Rose red? Should it be as red as a rose is, or the color of the rose? Love first chose. So love first, and first instance, he says the color of the flower should be as beautiful as a rose is, a red rose. Then prayed. Prayed is requested. Then requested, no, lily white, because both the flowers are equally beautiful. So he says, no, let the flower be as white as the lily. But then he reconciles, he rethinks, and what does he say? Or both provide. Why can't we have a flower which is neither red like the rose nor white like the lily. So can't I have a mix of both the flowers in one flower, right? So then prayed, no, lily white or both provide. Provide is to give, supply. So can't we have a flower? Can't you provide us a flower which is neither red nor white? And see what happens. So, and Flora gave the lotus. And lotus, as we all know, is neither red nor white. It is a pink colored beautiful flower. So what does Flora do? It answers the question of, or it answers the prayer of love, God of love, and gives a flower, and the name of the flower is lotus. And what is the color? Rose red dyed. D-Y-E. D-Y-E. Dye means color. So lotus looks like a red flower which has been dyed, which has been colored, and lily white. And what phrase or what word does Toru Dutt use for lotus? She says it is queenliest flower that blows. Blows is blooms, or which shakes with winds, or which beautifies the whole world of flowers. Queenliest. Queen, of course, queen here means the supreme, but queenliest means which is the best flower. So the queenliest flowers that blows. So if Toru Dutt says, if she was asked which is the best flower, which is her favorite flower, she will always say lotus is her best flower, her favorite flower, and the word she uses for it is the queenliest flower that blows. This is the best flower she has ever seen. And so this poem, I hope you have understood. And just 2 or 3 things which I would like to tell here. First, you have to remember it is a sonnet. Second, you have to remember the story behind this sonnet, or the story in the poem. And what is the story? The story is very simple. There is god of love, there is goddess of flowers, there is Juno mean, there is Psyche. So the god of love goes to the queen of flowers, asking for a flower which should be as beautiful as the rose and as attractive as the lily, as stately, which should have the royalness, the royalty, the stateliness, the majesty of a lily. Why does he go? Because every time there is a quarrel between 2 flowers, rose and lily. Rose says, I am the best, lily says, I am the best, and there is a division of flowers between them. Some flowers are on the side of rose, some flowers are on the side of lily. So god of love wants to find a solution to this problem which is going on, or to this dispute. So he goes to the goddess of flowers, Flora, and he says, I want a flower which looks as beautiful as the rose, and which is as beautiful as the rose, and which is as royal, or which has the pride of a lily. And Flora thinks and gives a flower, and that flower becomes the undisputed flower. Undisputed, that nobody has any problem regarding the beauty of that flower. And Toru Dutt calls it as the queenliest of flowers that blows. So with this we come to the end of this poem. I hope you have understood it, and then through some PPTs I will be giving you the questions and answers, and also an introduction to the poet. Thank you.